Okay, so hopefully you guys are all doing really good. Today's video we are going to be looking at sort of my golf swing, and we're going to be taking a look at Lynn, a student of mine, golf swing, and somebody that you guys might be familiar with. And if you want to check out how Lynn is getting on, you can look in the playlist below at student profiles and see their progress. And we do that so that you guys, when you're making swing changes, can watch those little videos and hopefully it helps you out. Now, in today's video, we're going to be taking a glance at the differing wrist positions. Now, this is something that using Hack Motion, I'm going to do a lot of now moving forward. I'm also going to link that information up to things like ball flight data as well using my flight scope, because I feel like a lot of golfers get a little bit lost in terms of what the wrist should be doing. And I think that's our sort of winter program. Build up that level of understanding, and then that way you'll start to make some real progress with your game. Today's going to be a little bit more like an introduction into the wrist positions. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do and what I've noticed by using Hack Motion I do even more in more detail. I'm going to take a little bit of a glancing look at exactly what happens with Lynn. But the point is, we'll see a difference between the two types of motion, but the question is, well, why? And we're also going to be answering that question as well. Now, on the screen, you're going to get some information from the shots that I hit. Now, I've hit a selection of shots with driver and iron. Same with Lynn. We'll come again into the details of, is the chip shots different to a long shot to a chip? We can do all that. That's exactly what I'm saying, and talk about how wrist angles influence things like loft. 100% we're doing that. But we're just going to get started on the basic principles of today's video, that essentially we would take hold of the golf club. Okay, and depending how you hold the golf club, whether you're somebody who grips it a lot in the fingers or whether you're somebody who grips it close towards the palm like myself, that will influence the first bit of wrist angle, which is measured by Hack Motion. Now, for Lynn, she has a slightly different grip than I do, so there's a slightly greater level of angulation in the set position, but that doesn't matter, right? That doesn't matter at all. And it theoretically doesn't matter at the top of the backswing either. Now, I'm somebody who has more of a tendency to try and flatten that lead wrist in the backswing position. I think the benefit of doing that is it does help you get the club a little more sort of laid off, kind of stops the club shaft getting too vertical. It takes away a sort of unnecessary movement that you need to do in the downswing. But the bigger difference that I wanted to talk about today is that downswing motion. When I'm hitting the golf ball, I really am producing an element of, shall we say, sort of shaft lean in the hit like this. Now, the difference for Lynn is she's not doing that. So the lead wrist is potentially still sort of flattening, but not to the same pronounced level as I'm demonstrating. The question would be, why? Okay, or if we think about it a different way, if you guys video your swing and you go, hang on a second, I've just been watching John Rahm and he's here and I'm here, all I've got to do is do that. No, it won't work that way. That's my point. So using the Hack Motion information, that's what you generally see. Generally see with professional golfers, there is a progressive flattening in towards the downswing. However, you're only going to get a progressive flattening in the downswing if you have a decent pivoting action. Now, what's happening with Lynn's swing at the moment is probably similar to what's happening to a lot of amateur swings. And what she's doing is, as she starts the downswing, she's still got this sort of tendency to fire her trail hip forward. Now, what this does is this shoves her hands a little out this way and it saturates space. So when she comes in towards the hit, it's almost like she has to stall and let her hands sort of pass through, therefore creating more of a sort of extension on the back of that wrist position, as opposed to a state of flexion. What I tend to do is, as I start my downswing, I get more of the initiation of pulling the lead hip back. So it's not this way and the hands go too far out in front of me like so. It's more this way, so my hands can drop more to the side of me. And then that way I can have more space to deliver them in towards that impact area. So my first point is, I'm not really bothered at the moment if there's a difference between Lynn and I in the setter position. I'm not really that bothered if there's a difference in the backswing. And the reason why, and I'm glancing over those, is because if Lynn changed the backswing or a setter position, she'll still have the same issue at impact anyway. So it doesn't matter. So that's the way I probably view it for you guys. If you're somebody who's flipping, yeah, okay, you could flatten your wrist in the backswing, but what I'm politely trying to say is you're still going to flip anyway, okay? So that's what we're saying. Now, the big thing, like I said, is, well, why does that happen? Well, we know she gets a little bit spinny, but why, therefore, do I induce so much flexion compared to, say, Lynn? And the answer really is, relatively sort of simple. One, yes, I'll probably be hitting down on the ball a little bit more, so the intention of striking down would induce more shaft lean. But more importantly than that, if I take my setup position like so, I open up my hips, I open up my chest, and I open up my shoulders slightly from my address position, you can see how much my lead wrist flattens already. Now with somebody like Lynn, because she's encroaching that space and getting closer, well, therefore the distance between her shoulder and the club head hasn't increased, it's probably decreased, hence why she looks more kind of this way instead of being this way. So what I'm trying to say is, as a little introduction into wrist angles, yes, you can move wrist angles around, and like I said, we'll come back to this subject area in much more details moving forward. But if you're somebody who knows you're doing this, personally, there'll be a reason for that, an underlying reason, and I'd probably put my hat on the fact that it's because of a pivoting action and just saturating space. And that's the big difference between the wrist angles between myself and Lynn. And the reason why there's such differences in my ability to create flexion and Lynn's inability to create flexion is nothing to do with the wrist position, it's nothing to do with the speed and the torquing, it's just simply to do with the fact that the sequencing of that motion isn't good enough, and that's exactly what I'm working on with Lynn. So I'm hoping in the upcoming weeks we'll be able to revisit this subject area and talk more about, now Lynn's got flexion and it feels completely different and the hit is miles better. And this is why, if you do this drill, and this is a drill that I did with Lynn on her last video, where you get set up in your normal setup position, and if you get the feeling of just pulling that lead, that pointing that pelvis down towards your lead ankle, what this does is it triggers a bit of rotation of the pelvis, bit of rotation of the chest, and as long as you keep your shoulders square as best as you can, you'll recreate that impact position. And that's why you'll always get that sound of compression, because you're able to adopt this type of position, as opposed to if I kind of, mimicked a bit more of where Lynn is. She's a little bit more encroaching of the ball, more like so. And that's why you can hear the difference in the hit. We're going to get there. But hopefully this video is at least showcasing the importance of wrists are massive in the golf swing, but they're also, generally speaking, a byproduct of something else. I'll see you guys again really soon.